Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Radio, 1500 AM. I'm Jim Flyzik. On our second segment here, we're going to feature the Homeland Security panel. With us, we have Kevin Cox, the CDM Program Manager, Department of Homeland Security, Adrian Gardner, the Chief Information Officer, FEMA, Soraya Correa, the Chief Procurement Officer, Department of Homeland Security Headquarters, and Stephen Rice, Deputy Chief Information Officer, Department of Homeland Security Headquarters. Let's get into talking about exciting stuff going on in DHS. Let's start with Kevin. Kevin, I think of you and I think CDM. I mean, it just jumps right out at me, but tell us about some progress and what's going on exciting in the area.
Sure. Thanks again for having us today. And we're going to talk about our program in terms of where we're currently at and where we're headed. But the purpose of the Continuous Diagnostics and Mitigation Program is to help the agencies protect their data against the threat, the nation-state threat, criminal threat that's targeting us on a daily basis. So just to set some context, we're working with those agencies to get solutions out there, to get better visibility on their networks, and to get the proper protections in place. So what we have been able to accomplish over the past few years is to get discovery out to the agencies, get technology out so that they have real-time awareness of what's connected to their network, who the user base is, and then to feed that data up into a near real-time dashboard, to allow the agencies and ultimately the federal government to be able to ensure that the proper protections are in place and that we have a good understanding of how the data is being stored and protected in the long run. So in this past year, in the past few months, we have brought the federal dashboard up online. Mm-hmm. All of the agencies now have their agency dashboard in place. There's still a lot of work to be done to finish getting the data feeds up from the sensors out at the agencies and making sure that the agencies have complete visibility of their networks, and then ultimately summarizing that data up to the federal level, getting that federal dashboard operationalized with the NCIC, the folks that are able to monitor and help the agencies address their vulnerabilities. And then we're going to continue forward with our shared service effort as well, helping the non-CFO Act agencies protect their environment using cloud services, and then continuing to work with as we move into phases 3 and 4 of our program, getting additional protections out on the network for the agencies, as well as getting down to the data even more and protecting that, getting the right solutions in place for the agencies.
Yeah. What's exciting to me about watching this program is, having been the vice chair of the Federal CIO Council for close to 4 years and being part of the Reinventing Government, to do anything on a government-wide basis is a major, major Herculean task. Mm-hmm. And to see this program continuing to evolve like it has been evolving is a real joy to watch. How about some of the lessons you're learning along the way?
The one big lesson learned I like to come back to is the value of partnerships and really understanding that this is not just a DHS program, it's a program for the federal government. And it's us partnering with the agencies to help protect their data, help protect their networks. It's also us partnering with the system integrator community and the vendor community to help get the right technologies out quickly to the agencies to help them ensure that they have the latest, greatest technologies to protect their environments.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Adrian Gardner over FEMA. Adrian, talk to us a little bit about some programs at FEMA. Obviously, FEMA's been in the spotlight. We had one heck of a year with the hurricane, so I know you guys have been doing a monumental task in terms of pressure and requirements, but what sticks out to you in program that you think is really making a difference?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been an unprecedented year, obviously. I mean, you look at the number of storms, the fires in California, the government as a whole has rallied together to make that response happen. So one is this whole spirit of partnership, sort of riffing off what Kevin just said. The other governmental agencies that within DHS that participated in the way of surge capacity, the other federal agencies, even those outside of the DHS family that came together with us. It was a team sport. And if you look at the way we did that, from a standpoint of surge capacity, we onboarded more than 10,000 people in less than 6 weeks through our personnel mobilization centers. got them to a place where they were ready to hit the ground running to support survivors directly. That has been a monumental sort of activity for the CIO community outside of just the surge capacity folks.
Sure.
Steve worked with us and across the CIO community within DHS to pony up an additional almost 25 people to do manned call centers at headquarters to take incoming calls real time with survivors in a way that we could not have actually done within our organization, within our agency, without sort of that support. So one of the things I think is a big lesson learned for us is really how do we now sort of institutionalize this, although we have the mandates in place and the process at a high level in place. From an IT and infrastructure plan standpoint, how do we actually now begin to institutionalize that capability and capacity? And then the other thing is across other federal agencies that are represented at the distant end. So in other words, SBA and HUD, as well as FEMA and DHS employees and staff, how do we actually come together to sort of make this a uniform effort as far as how we'll do this again? Because if you look at it right now, it is going to happen again. The thing now is, how do we prepare for that?
Yeah, I know we talk, I've talked a number of times about the way the world's working these days with technology. We're approaching time where decision making it's pretty getting to be time is equal zero. I mean, you have to just do things just so quick. What are some of the challenges that you have when you're trying to manage something that massive, Adrian?
So it's absolutely time. If you look at these events, from a standpoint of CONUS versus OCONUS, in other words, Puerto Rico and VI versus Texas and Florida, very different sort of challenges, right? And so I think we have to recognize the fact that those challenges exist, plan for those in a way that then makes the outcome, I would say, at least more structured and more of a way in which the survivors and as well as the federal entities know how to sort of play that out. In other words, we have plans in place, but I think we're going to learn a lot coming out of these events where we have never faced a situation where an infrastructure has been completely obliterated to the tune of more than 50% of the infrastructure of Puerto Rico and the VI basically has been rendered inoperable. And so that's something that we have not faced before. And so we need to take that key lesson learned in and then figure out how we're going to actually manage that, whether that be pre-staging sort of assets on island or finding ways in which we can build more robust systems and capabilities on island. So there's a whole discussion around survivable and resilient capabilities, survivable communications, survivable power grid. There's a lot of discussions around that. So I think there are going to be a lot of lessons learned from perspective of how we work.
What do you think is what worked well, and what was a key that made things work well?
Yeah,
what
absolutely. Partnership is one. What we did from a perspective of on the IT side, we had rolled out the PIV enablement, the personal identifiable verification card. We leveraged those cards across DHS to create interoperability. So when you had folks coming in from other federal agencies, in other words, from an ICE or a CBP, so on and so forth, we leveraged their PIV credentials. We actually, through the personnel mobilization centers, we sent them all to Anniston, where again, there were 10,000 onboarded. We had actually a structured process to really get them through, trained up, get them oriented to sort of FEMA, and then out the door within like about 72 hours. So a lot of those lessons are things that I would highlight. So partnership, I think leveraging the IT in a way that it meets the demand signal. And then the third thing is really a standardization of our processes. So institutionalizing the way that we fight. So train the way we fight the way we train.
Well said, Adrian, as always. Soraya, Correa, one of my favorite people around town. By definition, IT people and procurement people have a little disagreements here and there, push back and forth, and the IT people say, well, the procurement people are always trying to find ways why we can't do things. But what I like about Soraya is she doesn't view anything as a constraint. She takes it as a challenge and tries to figure out a way to make it happen. But Soraya, tell us about something you're proud about that happened over the past year that you'd like to share with the audience here and the listening audience out in Radio Land.
Sure. Well, I would say probably the first thing I'm most proud of is our Procurement Innovation Lab, which is working collaboratively with all of our customers, whether it's Adrian in FEMA or it's Steve Rice to my left here, our acting CIO, or even with Steve Cox when we talk about the CDM program, which National Protection and Programs Directorate is a strong part of. The Procurement Innovation Lab is focusing on how do we improve business processes, how do we come up with more clever, creative, innovative ways, working within the confines of the regulations to speed up the process, to work better with industry, more closely collaborate with industry as well as our federal partners to come up with smart ways to evaluate proposals in real time and make sure that we're getting the products and services that we need that support the mission, but in a quick manner so we can get these folks back on the front lines doing their job. The PIL has been very successful. We've run probably over 19 projects.
Oh, wow,
In
cool.
fact, yesterday I was at the Senior Procurement Executives Council that's hosted by the Office of Federal Procurement Policy, and I was really proud to hear the VA highlight a project that they worked on that we collaborated with them, where they used one of our processes, where we used the technical demonstrations from industry. Instead of having them write reams of papers, using reams of paper to write proposals, we bring them in and they demonstrate their capabilities. So I would say that that's what I'm most proud of, because it's creative risk-taking. It's making sure that we're working in partnership with our customers, and it does the most important thing that I want to do in procurement. Properly plan with my customer to deliver what they need, when they need it, how they need it, in furtherance of the mission.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. The second thing that I would highlight is our collaboration with industry, our acquisition innovations in motion, where we're getting out there and holding things like strategic industry conversation, where we're talking to industry before there are solicitations out there, before we're planning a procurement, to really let them know, here are the challenges we face, here are the problems that we're trying to solve, and making sure that industry understands our needs, but more importantly, that we understand how we can work better with industry. We've been very successful with that. What I'm seeing is our community, the procurement community, being more effective at talking to industry.
Right.
We're not perfect. I'm trying to change a cultural thinking, trying to break that barrier, that myth, as we
Right.
like to call it, that we can't talk to industry. But we're doing a much better job. I'm getting very positive comments from industry. And the other thing that I'm really heartened by is that when industry does see a problem, they bring it to my attention or to the attention of the head of contracting, so the problem can actually be solved.
Right.
So really excited about those kinds of changes.
What a
that we're
novel
making.
idea, you know, if we want to understand each other's requirements, let's talk to each other. What a great idea. And what I also like a lot about Soraya is, you know, over the years I've been able to push back, and she pushed back on me, get into a little tit for tat as to what we think, you know, and I still really don't like that LPTA stuff, but we don't need to talk about it
That's
now.
okay, I'm with you. I don't like it either too much. No, just kidding.
How about lessons learned?
So I would say lessons learned, I think you're gonna hear the same thing, partnership. It's about partnership at all levels in the organization. One of the things that I think we've done very well at the department is the lines of business within management, the CIO, the CFO, the CPO, all the C-suite. We come together to solve problems. We talk to one another, we share our lessons learned, and we learn to help one another out. That level of partnership permeating the organization is going to make us far more effective and efficient. But then it's taking that partnership outside of our agency and working with the other federal agencies that are out there, whether it's GSA, the Office of Federal Procurement Policy, VA, whoever's out there that's got a really smart idea, let's get in a room together and let's see if we can share in those ideas, we can improve upon the ideas, and maybe even collaborate and do a few things together and really surprise everybody by being consistent across our government.
That's exciting
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I guess the theme that emerged on that first panel we had was consolidation, realignment, enterprise, approaches, and so forth. What's emerging on this one is the partnering idea, the partnership idea. And I guess having a procurement executive on the panel helps that partnership theme kind of come out too. So, you know, thanks for bringing that out.
I always feel like an honorary CIO when I come and I'm around these guys.
These guys would be honored to have you at the table, I'm sure. Let's talk to Steve Rice, the Deputy CIO at DHS. Steve, what comes to mind if I asked you to highlight a program that you're proud of that happened over the past year?
I don't know if I would highlight a program. I would
Okay.
highlight
I'll go anywhere you want with this.
the change in the conversation at DHS, particularly in the area of IT. One of the things that I witnessed when I first came on last year at the department level was how was IT seen across management, and how we could look at it as a transformational agent. So one of the things that we first and foremost did was making sure that everybody understood our business, understood the challenge, and understood the transparency of the finances, the acquisition, and the issues that we're trying to face. Sounds kind of simple, but if you've never seen a data center, you really don't know the size, scale, and complexity. So the first thing we did is I created a roadshow. I took the finance community, I took the procurement community, I put them in the car, I took them in the vans, and drove them down to the data center. I let them see rows and rows of racks of equipment.
Wow.
And
Good
they
move.
started talking about the challenges of recapitalization and the complexity based on the size, scale, number of patches necessary, and just the pace of a data center. Also had the opportunity to drive down the road and show them a cloud center. I had the opportunity to show them Microsoft. And they saw all rows and rows of equipment, but we started talking about a change in business. So instead of it being a cloud and a nebulous term, they started seeing that there are data centers behind it, but it's actually a change in business models. Took back and we started talking about questions at the senior staff level about who are we? So if you start looking at our mission, we support a very broad and diverse mission across the department. And I was able to take the leadership team of DHS, the CIO community, I took them out to the laboratories at TSA. And I was able to show them the technologies of Internet of Things as it applies to baggage and checkpoint technologies, and how those things run on a very complex network, and how those devices will scan over 2 million passengers a day. And if we have an anomaly on the network, if we don't have the diversity of the paths, if we have some sort of recapitalization issue that's facing us and degrading that performance, we're affecting and providing an opportunity for a known suspected terrorist to be able to board aircraft.
Sure.
We're able to take them and talk through some of the high transactions that we do in the area of secure flight, so they understand that compute requirements that are necessary, and how that the analysts are necessary to be able to look at those panes of glass,
Right.
to be able to understand how we're buying down threat from a management perspective.
Yeah.
And then we started talking about, what are we not? And what we're not is we're not scaled to run large, complex networks with the federal staff that we have today. We're also not poised to be able to look at our current data center constructs and be able to move out to a different compute and storage model. So this is where it goes back to partnership, where we are able to sit down, since they've seen my mission. They know what my complexities are. I can sit down with the procurement staff at multiple levels and understand how we can transform how we deliver services today. I can sit down with the CFO community and I can start talking about recapitalization challenges and how these are unsustainable in the declining budget that we have today. So we can start discussing how do we transform ourselves, not that we no longer deliver services, but we govern services in a different way, we acquire services in a different way, and we actually transform the type of IT, the federal IT professional we're looking at, so that we're not looking for infrastructure professionals, we're looking for data analysts. We're looking for persons that understand how to operate in the cloud.
Excellent.
We're looking at the ability to move into a cloud or a DevOps approach. So it's that change in conversation I'm most proud of this year.
Yeah, I love the idea of the optics too, taking people out and showing them things. I think it was Einstein who said, if you can't visualize something, you can't understand it. And so having people visualize things drives things home. I think the era of text-based documents, by the way, is history too. Nobody likes to pick up and go through a bunch of text requirements and things like that. You need the graphics, you need the visualization to be included. How about a lesson learned?
I think the lesson learned is understand your technology, understand to talk at a different level based on your audience, and build that network. Great example that Adrian brought on is when the hurricanes were making landfall in Texas, is understand how that impacts, my services impact the FEMA mission, understand that there's transparency on how the services are being delivered, and when there's an anomaly, get in front of it early. But
Excellent.
those are my lessons learned.
Excellent points. Boy, we heard some great stuff with this panel. The progress in the CDM program moving along. Heard about Innovation Lab, the partnerships, and how FEMA made it through some real rough times, and still is with fires out in the West Coast. And we heard about the way you're reorganizing and doing what needs to be done. And I love that visualization idea. With that, I want to thank these senior panelists for taking time from your very busy schedules to be out here with us and share your thoughts with the audience and the listening audience out there in Radio Land. We're going to move over and hear from the DoD side of the house here in a short time. But first, we're going to take a short break. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Radio, 1500 AM.